Down the Rabbit Hole 2 lies in this strange place where it's simultaneously far more transparent than its predecessor in how it presents, while also being far more confusing in every facet. Every little plot thread is given a clear explanation, but not one that feels, right. Figure 1, Yuki will spend hours discussing with herself the scribbles on Zakuro's desk, but her answer to everything being a simple, "Oh, she must have just been out of her mind, lol, XD, rar," while an answer, "Sure, I guess," isn't really a satisfying conclusion. At all. This is because Yuki is just not using her full noodle. She has a conclusion already, and though she seems to be smart in her thinking, she places all of her legs under one table, if you catch my drift. Contradiction and conspiracy is DTRH2's bread and butter, and Yuki is eating a full course of everything is Mamiya Takuji's fault. On a more basic level, however, this story is a reincarnation of what came before, mixed in with the DNA of the rest of Subahibi. See, DTRH1 stands on its own, but its sequel is the connective tissue bridging things like Yuki and Zakuro's shared existence, to Zakuro's curse, and Mamiya Takuji as an individual who does things. The story starts out with the same lead, same rooftop, same opening thoughts even. But it's not, because it isn't. Yuki has these little changes in her opening spiel that color her and the world around her in a dingier shade. No longer does she do that lackadaisical mosey from one topic to the next. When she focuses on things like the sky now, she starts commenting on how it should be a different color for every day of the week. Both in theme and lead character, there's a reason there are 2 chapters titled Down the Rabbit Hole. The first is used in a more metatextual sense, as it's the audience being shown the things Subabuba has to offer. The second, the topic of today if you're keeping up, is used in a more literal sense. We're going down the rabbit hole of the Kita High incident as it unfolds with Yuki, investigation kit that she just has for some fucking reason in tow. I touched on this last part, but I wholeheartedly believe that following along with Yuki and doing your homework is the best way to read Suba, but this chapter especially benefits from that thought process. It makes it fun to see if you can unravel things before Yuki, or if you reach different conclusions, which I'd imagine most people do because they're not Yuki. They're their own individual and are able to contextualize things differently. I, of course, knew what was going on because this is my second read, but in the spirit of that mentality, I took really detailed notes and formed a conclusion on the entirety of Subahibi based purely on the events in this chapter. Now, I have biases and I can't erase my knowledge inherent to me entirely, but I tried my best and the end result is this. This blackboard contains every little thing my brain could think of. Every loose end I am confident is covered here. Asterisk maybe, I don't fucking know. It's in this format because I thought it would be fun. Let's hope I was right because I had to rearrange my entire fucking room with my weak little estrogenized arms. This blackboard is the objective reality of what's going on inside the plot of Subadashiki Hibi, asterisk based entirely on the events of Down the Rabbit Hole 2. Don't click away, I promise I haven't sold out, I'm not doing plot synopsis as analysis, and this will tie into what I opened the video with. You just gotta give me a minute to make that up. I mean, it's already been written, who am I kidding? Trust me, I am very smart. Sometimes. Frances Farmer was an American actress during the golden age of Hollywood. Her career was going merry until her mother decided to ship her off to an insane asylum. No shit. As for how, well, it was the 1950s, so much as sneeze wrong, and they diagnosed you with manic depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, fucking paranoid schizophrenia, pretty much anything that sounds bad because they didn't know anything. They didn't know shit about fuck. You think Twitter overdiagnoses ADHD? Well, you're right, but also, you ain't seen nothing. Though, it's not right to say Frances literally did nothing. I mean, the behavior that got her put in exile was, drunk driving and assaulting a police officer. That second one's just based, and there's nothing actually written down here. This is just a fucking drawing of someone with a dick. But, yeah. That's all she did. So, basically, Farmer did next to nothing. But it was sensationalized anyways, and you know how it goes. Bad press equals, sure, you're in the cultural zeitgeist doing shit, but also means less acting, which means less money for mommy, which means suddenly, ooh, my daughter's a liability. I gotta fucking take her and toss her. Now,
Maria!
Farmer did have some mental health issues. Like, actually, but like, most people do. No, like, she actually did have some. She was probably, like, actually manic depressive and was suffering symptoms of years of drug abuse from being a good little actress. It was the 50s, golden age of Hollywood. You ever read up on the fucking girl who played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz? Like, that isn't a one-time story. That happened to a lot of particularly women. Just pump them full of drugs so they can keep acting and stay skinny. That's what they did, and Farmer was a victim of that. Hers was just public before most people's. Not even public, just sensationalized. Made into a funny little story for everyone to consume. But basically, the only thing wrong with Farmer is that she was an alcoholic, and she had a little bit of that succulent manic depression that gives all the hot girls their power. But yeah, those two things, one of which could have, like, just shipped her off to rehab and would have been solved, are really the only two things holding her back in life. And if you don't believe me when I say that her mom was probably the cause of all this, the year her mom died, she got out of the mental ward. Because she really didn't have any issues. I mean, she had issues after she got out. The reason she had those issues after she got out was because she was placed there in the first place. Her mom wanted her to stay there indefinitely because she was the only one profiting off the royalties from Farmer's movies. You kind of heard me touch on it before, but boy, those mental health institutions were real pieces of work too. You ever think about how it's literally American folklore that every single one of these places is haunted? Like, there's literally an entire subcategory of movies predicated on this. Funny thing about Farmer, she went through what would generally be conceived as the worst of the worst when it comes to the treatment inside these mental institutions. She had a maybe lobotomy, facts are a little iffy on that, but she definitely had some electroshock therapy, some insulin shock therapy, and just for good measure, a little sexual assault from the staff. Just a little bit. You know, it builds character. Ah, God. Would you believe me if I told you that none of those things worked? I know, it shocked me too. Naturally, once Farmer got out, she spent the rest of her life fighting addiction, suffering from... you know... by which I mean manic episodes in public, not being able to hold down a job. She was fucked over a lot. Thank you, lying tabloids that exploited her condition and stretched details. Thank you, Mother Dearest, and thank you, shitty mental health institutions. I'm really glad that stuff's gotten better in recent years, guys. We've done a great job since. You'd hope that Farmer would be some kind of cautionary tale that the collective learned from, but no. No. She was sensationalized in her life, yes, but she was made a mockery even more so after her death. You see, once it was too late to do anything, and she was in her grave, well, that's the moment her life makes a really good sob story. That's the moment it's suddenly okay, no, morally righteous to make movies, books, fucking everything about her. Because then, and only then, once the, oh, look what Francis did this week, only then, once that's out of your mind, can you really let the dust settle and say and act and behave Like you always fucking cared. It's a funny little dichotomy, don't you think? Just like a funny little thing that people do. Yeah, Farmer. Decades after her death, just came years and years of media propping her up as this misunderstood idol. I guess that's the intro to the video. I'm done. I can stop recording now. God. Fuck. Bro. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. One, meek boy to savior. Takuji's weird, right? He shows up in the intro as the shy incel type, and not a scant few days pass and he's doing things like this. Now, he'd have you believe he's the savior of humanity, or at least key to high, but I don't know, best girls thinking otherwise. However, those ideas of hers can't cover everything. She has no explanation for how he can everywhere, nor how he literally reads her mind. So we kind of have no explanation either. Unless we view it through the lens of Zakuro in the last chapter, and hear me out. Zakuro had the ability to enter Yuki's world and, in a small way, see everything about her. Here Takuji is, maybe, doing something similar. He is, after all, intrinsically connected to Zakuro via carrying out the curse system she set the groundwork for. More on that later. Again, have you seen this board? With that in mind, it could also be possible that Takuji is savior maxing as early as their first meeting. His and Yuki's, I mean. Look at this CG. It's Takuji standing powerfully, juxtaposing the meek nature of how he's acting in this moment. More importantly, it pairs extremely well with the CG at the end of DTRH1. Combined, it visually sets up that they're going to have a confrontation, but it also implies a connection between them, a shared synapse that the VN leans heavily into the implications of. Takuji's changes and actions seemingly defy explanation, yet perhaps they can make sense if connected to the axiom of the larger narrative. In particular, his relationship with Yuki. For now though, just keep in mind that Zakuro, Yuki, and Takuji are connected in some way. 2. I am the world. This quote is very similar to the conversation Yuki has with Takuji in Down the Rabbit Hole 1. You know, the talk about how long have I been me. She says this little ditty this time around as if she's remembered the ending of Down the Rabbit Hole 1, where she was done being a ghost, where she recognized that she was the world girl. I touched on this last time from an in-text and Wittgenstein standpoint, but I want to take a little bit of a different lens to it this time around. This little quote serves to signify that this is all Yuki's perspective. This is what she sees, what she perceives. This is her world. And thusly, maybe we, as the audience, should keep in mind that this perspective of hers is slightly skewed, just a little bit. A tiny amount. That's unfortunate. There are other realities and views on the events that happen in this chapter, and we should keep that in mind lest we fall down a conspirial spiral meta. I know that's a shitty pun, but I wrote it, I said it. We all have one singular perspective, and that colors every single little minute thing in our lives, from how you perceive and interact with others to literally, maybe even the colors you see. Again, with the my green is different from your green stuff that I brought up in the last part. Suba reflects this aspect of our existence, and this time around calls attention to it. Not only does it want us to analyze the plot, it wants us to put our feet, into the shoes of maybe another character that isn't Yuki, because Yuki isn't getting the full perspective on things. But don't worry, if you're not into doing that kind of thing now, The VN will just literally give you different perspectives with the later chapters, It's My Own Invention, Looking Glass Insects, etc. ad nauseum for the rest of eternity, or at least until you finish the visual novel, so you don't have to worry about it too terribly much, but them's the breaks. You know, this shot right here, the hand on the door, is gonna look so aesthetic for the one part of the video you guys won't see, because it'll be fucking covered in a bunch of nonsense. Because that's my editing style, is you just fucking throw a bunch of filters onto it, and it looks, like, funny. And it looks great. Look at those fuckers run. Look at them. Ignorant to the evils of the world. I want money. Give me money. Give me your money. Back to the talks about Yuki, though, there is something important to keep in mind for her perspective. Yuki's world is fractured. This is more than her narcolepsy, too. I mean, hell, just look at the scene where Kagami and Tsukasa go to their club activities. When they go do that, a few days into the story, Yuki makes up an excuse in her mind that was never said by the twins to go out into the field and meet them. It's something that is explicitly not true, but is convenient to the plot for her to do. This isn't bad writing, it's intentional. It's a little seed that tells us something about the sisters Wakatsuki. They're a part of this fractured worldview Yuki has. In other words, they aren't real. At least, kinda. Let me explain. Taking two things into account, this whole whirly-turly Wakatsuki existence question gets an answer. One, when the sisters are away from the plot, Yuki's mind starts going way more.
Think you're real slick, don't ya? Well, answer this then.
Put simply, without her incestuous childhood best friend temptations around, Yuki has an IRL schizo moment. Those inconsistencies that she experiences are where the second point lies, and where the first point is strengthened more because every little one of those inconsistencies is written off as being done by one of the sissies. First scene with the music CD Yuki gets literally 15 minutes into the story. When she checks the CD back home, this time somehow avoiding Zakuro going sploosh, it, for some reason, is an image album from some magical girl anime. My headcanon is personally lyrical Nanoha. I don't know why, that just kinda sounds right, but regardless of that, she knows she didn't buy this thing because she bought some indie rock album, like a real music listener who listens to music, which also, not that anyone actually cares, but I like to think she bought something like Live Through This by Hole. I totally am not biased and have been listening to that a lot lately, totally not. So what does she do when she realizes that the album is cringecore and not headbangin'? She says aloud, "Oh, that Kagami, what a goof, what a gaff. I'll sure have to ruffle her jammies over this one, yes I will." And then never brings up the CD again. That CD is an inconsistency, the same as the fucking ghosts she sees from time to time. The only reason the ghosts are able to take form and fuck with her is because, well, who's basically dead by that point in the story? Who is not there for Yuki to just write off those inconsistencies as? The Wakatsuki sisters are Yuki's anchor to the world. They keep her grounded. When they're gone, she kinda like dies pretty quickly after. Do they actually exist, though? Well, yeah, actually, kinda. One morning when Yuki wakes up, she hears someone calling out for a Tomo Nissan. Wonder who that is. And after this happens, Yuki thinks to herself, oh right, blank is. And then Tsukasa replaces the girl that was there. Coincidentally, the girl we see, though blurry, looks exactly like Mamiya Takuji's sister Hasaki, who we meet later into the story. Kagami, as shown later, is also just a rabbit doll, something that wouldn't be out of place for a girl like Hasaki to carry. Now, what does it mean that Tsukasa is Hasaki and Kagami is her rabbit doll, and that Hasaki is Mamiya Takuji's little sister in the same way that Tsukasa is Yuki's little sister? Who knows, honestly. Damned if I can deconfigure that mess. These headaches. These damn headaches. They don't stop. Every time I wake up, like a searing hot iron pressed against the back of my head. Always accompanied by a tearing sound to signal that I'm here again. There's a brief moment where things are hazy, but then the headaches ring in and I'm suddenly wrecked with the dissonant chorus of malaise. My consciousness shifting into its lull state. A sticky black substance like tar had seeped in and was entangling the boy's brain. The gripping muck sticking like melted peanut butter had assaulted every facet. I don't like it. I want to be in control of my emotions, but when it gets like this, I can't stop hitting myself for my stupidity or wanting to. Well, something bad, I think. I don't know, it's not fun to think about, so I try to ignore it, like everything else. Calm down. Calm down. I'm calm. His sense of time perception all but gone, he had failed to notice that he had been pacing around the small room for the past hour. An hour of repetition, a day of repetition. The week lost in it, etc. ad nauseum. The past month had been spent like this. The moment any progress had been made in the past, and he felt the urge to head out of his secret place, the muck would rip him back from reality and back to the Rubble. That's a good one. Way to paint the situation in broad, depressing strokes. None of this makes any fucking sense. Sisters or sister? Which one's the real? Which is the other? I don't know. God. Father. Why don't you speak to me? He rambled to no one in particular about seemingly nothing in particular, but voicing this ramble was always better than keeping it in. It never seemed to go anywhere if it was kept in. At least, that's what he thought. In reality, it'd be the same old same. He'd get the urge to go out after psyching himself up, and then would be pulled back again. Like a bad dog. Like rewinding a tape. Like clockwork, it happened again and again, etc. ad nauseum. But sometimes, there was a strange occurrence. Sometimes, the paranoid schizoid would have a brief moment of lucidity. In those moments, the map layout of his shared existence would be laid bare, and he could analyze it clearly, soundly, without any clerical error. The other has always been more fun. Even I like her more than me. It's hard, you know? It's really easy to build up a fake self and to want to become her. I want to merge my consciousness and not think. It's the solution to all this. To turn off my brain. It leads into the funniest thing of all. It's fun, isn't it? It's so funny how much I want to sing of all. Which is additionally funny because the people who tell me not to are filthy fucking hypocrites. They hurt people all the time. They hurt the me. The celebrities you're a piggy by fags. Of course, it doesn't require me to leave. Leave the safety of this room. Leave my endless repetitions back and forth, up and down. Really, I should just leave it all up to her. Me being here, saying this, plotting. It's all just good fun. Fun is what life is, you know? The mud encircled him, covering his arms, legs, torso, everything. He had tried to think his way out of this multiple times, but see, that's the actually funny part. A realization that he eventually came to from deep in the pit. Would this be the key to open the door, or another false start like so many times before? Regardless, upon elucidation, he spoke thusly. This is all manufactured by me. This is my own invention. There's a runner at third and second, but I'm a strike from being out in an incredibly shoddy batter. God cursed me, 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 God cursed me. I cursed me. I'll never be her. I built her up to be perfect. How could I be? All I can do is look at her, watch her fall to pieces in front of me slowly like the Hindenburg, shattered like a glass against concrete. If it's going to come to that, I'd rather go out screaming, kicking. If she's going to die, I want to see it myself. She was the best thing I had going, my one out. But fuck it, once you start the downward spiral, you might as well head for the bottom. I can only make self-destructive decisions. No one can stop me. I can't stop myself. I've tried, but I'm too busy being trapped in a cell of my own making, in a body of God's design that I viscerally disagree with. This room doesn't exist. This music doesn't exist. This story that I'm concocting within my little four-walled world doesn't exist. If it did, surely it wouldn't feel like this. I exist only in thought, as a frail little voice in the corner that you can barely make out, but it's distinctly
Hype-y shit, I make hype-y shit. I ignite real quick to excite these kids.
all of Kagami's memories regarding childhood Yuki were of, like, her cute boy crush that she had a crush on. That's a sentence. To paraphrase, until she started putting on a skirt, they didn't even know she was a girl.
Also bist du so slut. Shut the fuck up. I hate women so much, oh my god.
The sky is filled with anxious words. Brain reverse. Armageddon. El Himero. Nebula cloud. Angel remover. Angel night. Angel advise. Spiral Matai. And Mamiya Takuji. All of these were things that were etched into Zakuro's desk, and the last one she said right before she died to our girl Yuki. The exact meaning of all this pish-posh is kind of blurry, and as I stand here saying this to you, I'm kind of realizing that I kind of fucked this board up. You see, points 4 and 6 are kind of really interconnected. Now, should I have thought this out before I set up to record and combine these points? Yeah. But I set this board up weeks in advance, thanks to Prussian, and I'll be damned if I erase my immaculate handwriting now. As a matter of fact, let's just... literally flawless. But anyways, what these words do tie into is exactly what this point's about. The curse of Takashima, and specifically what she means by the sky is full of anxious words. Now, this curse is something that on the very premise I want to just reject because Yuki gives a pretty good deconstruction of it at the end, but I can't because of Down the Rabbit Hole 1. You see, Zakuro does some goofy-woofy shit there, where on the exact time our good friend Ayana mentioned, I believe it's July 12th at... July 16th, on top of Building C, at 5:58 p.m. on the dot, Zakuro seen dropping the doll off the roof in Down the Rabbit Hole 1, and in Down the Rabbit Hole 2, her bitch teacher that ignored her getting bullied, kicks the bucket, or it falls into the bucket rather. Ergo, because of this, and Takashima also additionally sending the first text message, which is what she refers to as the first and last joke, I think it would be foolish to write off that she has just no interaction with her own curse. She's clearly doing something behind the scenes that matters, but as for what that is, well, we'll just have to wait till we get through the rest of the board. But for now, It's just important to keep in mind that when it comes to Mamiya Takuji and Zakuro, they are interconnected. The teacher can't fall off the roof without Zakuro doing her thing, as said by Ayana. Ergo, Zakuro has some impact on her curse. Ergo, her curse is kind of a real thing. Ergo, Yuki's deconstruction is relatively on the same level as all those nitwits who will say, ooh, this anime is a real deconstruction of the genre. If you know, it's just like slightly good. Happened with Konosuba, happened with Eva. I'm sure it happened to fucking Spy Family too. I don't know. I haven't really kept up with modern anime. I'm too busy reading fucking visual novels. But the point is, none of this is a deconstruction. Please get educated on what that word actually means. Please, please, please. To get educated on why Yuki's analysis in this, not that anime shit, isn't a deconstruction, well, let's connect these points real quick, and it'll all start to come together. Because you see, Zakuro's anxious words that she talks about is literally Kita High. Kita High equals sky equal anxiety. Kita High kind of starts going zoomy as a collective after Takuji gives his little sermon, which, as an aside, he's so smart, asterisk, kinda. See, back in 2012 where Suba is set, and even more so today, every peripheral sense we have is flooded with negativity. It happens in our social media, it happens in our conversations, it happens in the news, and in all of our entertainment. We are shown suffering until it loses all meaning, pushed to stagnation because it benefits the shepherds in power. When you hear about a tragedy, do you really feel empathy, or is it just another statistic in an ever-growing book to you? Now mind you, this isn't the fault of you, the individual, but a failure of the collective of humanity, specifically capital. As for why Takuji is asterisk right, not just right though, we have to look at his conclusion. Takuji's way to amend this fundamental issue is to go all culty, which, while it does have some short-term merits in giving people unity, obviously doesn't work long-term. Or does it? See, Zakuro at the end of the last chapter clearly went to some kind of end sky. The Intergalactic Railroad, it was called back then, epic 1980s anime reference that I meant to watch but never actually did because I don't have time for that. But it was on that railroad that she ascended. Zakuro, as we have already previously connected, does have some influence on her curse, so who's to say that those who followed the N-Sky cult didn't also, you know, ascend? I mean, her whole brain reverse thing is her coming back from the dead, kinda, to influence Takuji, to send him little messages so that he is able to carry out her curse. At least, that's how I'm choosing to see it. I don't know how you're choosing to see it. You're probably smarter than me. Her whole brain reverse thing is her going back in time, kinda, and coming back to life, kinda, to influence Mamiya Takuji, and just that whole subsect of people with the ideology of her curse. In a way, she reverses death and sends her brainworms out to infect everyone. All of this is just food for thought. We'll touch on it again later. Probably, maybe, perhaps. To get the larger picture, however, and actually loop it back to what the fuck I was talking about, lol, Kita High is the sky, or a microcosm of it. It shows us a place that is full of literal anxious words at the news of Takashima's suicide, and people's fearful reaction to her prophecy that floods both the halls and the underground message board. This is literally represented in the VN as the text box filling up with chatter until those anxious mumblings are basically all you can see. As Kita High fills with more anxious words, it changes. It alters into a desolate place that few go to, and those who do are simply filled with glum and want to be saved. In the same way the world is absorbing the anxious words in the sky, the Webbot project is also a physical manifestation of that sentiment, taking in the anxious words people put online and absorbing them until it concocts a prophecy. The same prophecy Zakuro and Takuji prattled on about. As for the other words written on Takashima's desk, well, to be honest, we never get an explanation in this chapter. It's essentially just a one-off remark and left up to speculation until then. Literally, what I opened all this up with, Yuki's conclusion is that Zakuro is just a little loopy, just a little goofy girl. I'll cover them eventually, probably, maybe, but I hope that all made sense. Do you see the funny little connections already starting to fall into place as we get further along? I promise you all of this will make sense soon, but only in due time. For now, let's break up the pace a little bit. There's only so much info dumping I can do before none of you retain it anymore. So, let's talk about something completely off topic, but kinda not at the same time, because it involves characters and themes that are near and dear, hopefully you bigots, to all our hearts. I don't know if that's even on camera, but gay pace break. This is important, trust me. Though it's not as explicit this time around as it was in the last chapter, with the last chapter, you know, having the whole it's still here. It's still gay. Yuki and the Wakatsuki sisters aren't hetero. Look at the CG. Look at the CG. I'm putting it on the screen. It's right here. I'm slapping it. It's so cute, right? It's fucking adorable. Yeah. Okay. That ought to have filtered the undesirables in the audience. Let's actually talk about something substantial. Let's talk about Otanashi Ayana. Ayana. Every time I interact, I find myself to myself slightly differently. It's never something intentional, and most people just do this subconsciously and never realize it, but I think too much, and my thinker's feeling thinkily active tonight, so let's think about it in a section that adds kind of nothing to the video, but I'll tie it back to Otanashi Ayana, because she, ultimately, is the quintessential example of what I'm talking about. Depending on who she's interacting with, she herself will conduct herself differently. She'll throw herself into fire. She'll say to Yuki, "I'm really cool, aren't I?" To Takuji, she's a fucking creature, existing solely to fuck with the boy and make him question his sanity. To Zakuro, she's mystically direct, offering words not of comfort, but of truth. She seemingly knows everything and is exact to the point of responding to questions with, "I'll answer you in 30 seconds. Even when she's joking with Yuki, you still get the sense that she could drop something to completely shatter the girl's world. Hell, she kinda does give her the breadcrumbs already with her whole, "it's something you hid away from everyone and yourself" tangent. Once realizing what that thing was, Yuki does stop functioning and just spouts out syntax errors like she's a broken script. To most people, Ayana just defies logical explanation. I didn't dip into it too much in the last video, and I don't plan on covering everything here because it's something I want to open up again and again like a recurring heart patient. But some of her interpretations do legitimately fascinate me. It seems like everyone has one of their own, and I kinda love that. Take for example the idea that she's schizophrenic and everything is her delusion. I made no qualms that I despise this interpretation in the last part, but I didn't explain why. It seems like a solid theory on its face. I mean, its basis stems from Sky 2, where she states that she's everyone in the main cast except Kimika. So naturally, some people take this to mean that she's literally a part of the DID system Yuki, Takuji, and Tomosane are a part of. That everyone's actually a part of that, but Ayana is the original personality. See though, that kind of falls apart once you take into account the ramifications of her also being Zakuro and Haseki. They, unlike the rest, don't necessarily have like a codified explanation for the things they do, things that are completely separate from Tomosane and co, because they do them because they do them at the exact same time. I mean, Jabberwocky literally opens and Hasaki's out washing dishes and Tomosane's playing the piano. They're both in separate places, and different people acknowledge them as being in separate places and doing separate things. The DID system that Tomosane has concocted in his head does a lot. I don't think it does that. Specifically because there's no other example of it doing that. It doesn't do that when Yuki's at the helm. It doesn't do that when Tuki's at the helm. It doesn't do that when anyone's at the helm. I like the idea, especially with things like the hospital beds that pop up in DTRH1 all over the place. But I find it falls apart in execution unless you assume that literally everything is something Ayana made up. Which, honestly, I just find kind of boring, so I don't accept it. I feel like it's dubious at best to surmise Subahibi's story as just Ayana's delusion. To me, that loses all the nuance. DID and schizophrenia are just factors in the plot, not the main attraction. At least to me. Another theory for her existence is that she's simply Scotty's self-insert, a character that appears at a moment's notice to irrevocably change the path that another character takes. We see this with Takuji in IMOI, where Ayana's intervention makes him view her as one of his greatest enemies. To a lesser extent, we also see this with Yuki in this chapter. Ayana in DTRH2 is someone Yuki can bounce any idea of hers off of and get a response that catapults her into elucidation. If you want to get really meta with this interpretation, we can also say that how Ayana interacts with the cast is how Scotty would like to interact with his characters were they real. For instance, those dynamics with Takuji and Yuki are represented both in how Ayana interacts with the two and in the plot itself. Takuji goes through some shit, and Yuki gets one of the happiest endings in the visual novel on her first try. It's only when Takuji avoids interacting with Ayana that he himself can get his own happy ending. As for Yuki in this chapter, it can be assumed that once bored of her, Ayana/Scotty just wants to mind break her. He just wants to have a little bit of fun with his toys. Here's another interpretation for you though. It's one I only recently came to myself. Ayana is the personification of the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. Her speech patterns line up with how Wittgenstein writes. Upon reflection of her words, the character in the story come to revelations about the world, and most importantly, whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. Ayana can't be explained or codified in one box because she belongs to the realm of the unspeakable. We cannot talk about what Ayana is because we lack the language to do so. Which is why I think she herself, when asked what she is, only responds, "I am Otanashi Ayana." Why does she know everything and seemingly appear at random? Because she is Otanashi Ayana. Yeah, it's a simple explanation for sure, but I rather like it. It also gives credence to why her theme is literally just the title of Wittgenstein's work. Also, that the characters interact with her and take away different interpretations is exactly how we interact with works of philosophy like the Tractatus. Ayana is simply Ayana. That's all there is to it. Well, I've talked your heads off enough down here. Men equal trash? Seriously, though, I do hate the culture they've created in Kita High, which is just really a microcosm of our own world, but I won't get into that right now because most people would probably find that a little annoying, a little preachy, a little blah. But in Kita High specifically, the men in the classroom will frequently, usually 100% of the time, only recall Zakuro by her bodily features. You know, they only remember her as the girl who breasted boobily instead of as, you know, the shy girl who didn't have many friends and everyone treated like shit. It's all to obfuscate what they really feel inside. You know, they just push those feelings of guilt away and they say, oh yeah, she Tits McGee, baby. You know, that's what they do, and it's bullshit. And this misogyny goes deep into even the women in the classroom. They will objectify Zakuro and treat her as like, oh, that little doll, because they're all jealous whores. They don't know how to feel, so they just fucking hurl slurs at her. It's really fucked up. But one good thing that comes out of this is Yuki absolutely goes off and has like one of the best moments, at least I think, just of like dialogue where she's sitting around asking people, are you happy she offed herself? Because that's what it sounds like, and that's what you're implying. Also, she's just like sickened by how that's the only way people can recall her. Just that whole ignoring what led to Zakuro's decision, and in fact only raising up more the things that she did and the things that led to her death. You know, it's the same kind of toxic culture that killed Frances Farmer. I am very good at YouTube. Asterisk, don't check my analytics, please. I'm very insecure and I still haven't hit 3K subs despite doing this for 3 years. Please don't check my analytics. But all of this whole random tangent actually does tie into what I was talking about earlier with how the media desensitizes us to death. This is shown very expertly in the class reaction, the school's reaction to Takashima's suicide. And here's a little bit of a personal sleepy tale for you, because I have a story that is slightly relevant to all this. See, I remember when a kid died at my own high school. It was a really fucked up thing to happen. It was a car wreck, and insult to injury, it was like right next to my house. And I didn't know how to feel about that. But while I didn't know how to feel about the death, I did know how to feel about the one thing that made me even more enraged, made me feel even more negative emotions than the death itself, and that was the wide consensus among the student body at my IRL school to just look at this girl's death and go, damn, bro, whew, that's so sad, that's rough. You know, literally laughing at it and making a mockery of it. And I remember this in particular happened at a lunch table after it had literally been announced, 2 minutes of silence please for this student. And then, you know, they got their 2 minutes of silence, but afterwards everyone was cracking jokes about it, and I just sat there like not saying anything. I should have said something. I really should have said something, but I was like fucking too broken at the time to even fucking register what was going on. I just knew that it was really fucked up that people were making jokes about this, making light of this situation that had literally just happened. A person just died, but because they weren't in the popular group, because they weren't, you know, someone everyone had known, you know, it was only like a select group of like 3 people who were like actually mourning. And it seems like people treated those 3 better than they ever would have treated the person who actually died. You know? It just made me really fucking enraged to hear about that. Made me sick to my fucking stomach in a similar way to reading up about Frances Farmer and how mental health treatment has literally gone nowhere. You know, Zakuro, to tie it back to Subahibi, didn't have a lot, if any, friends, and I'm reaching further into the visual novel. You can debate Kimika, but I'm going to say Kimika wasn't really her friend. Because Kimika didn't want to be her friend. Kimika actively pushed her away. At least in the true route, but semantics. Zakuro is pushed aside. She's forgotten about. And ultimately is made a story for cheap laughs, and is the gossip, is the talk of the town. Again, Frances Farmer parallels. And isn't it just so fitting that Zakuro's curse is her come back as fire to burn out the liars moment? I really like that. I really like that. Everyone at that school, minus like a few people, deserve something like that. It just rings as this elegant melody in my ears to think about. Is that wrong? Is that messed up? Is that fucked up to think that, like, this whole culty nonsense is justified because these people were awful? I mean, I do think there's something to say for this being fiction and how I probably wouldn't hold the same standard to reality. As a matter of fact, I know I wouldn't. I think people deserve to be chided and told to shut the fuck up, but like, at least in a fictional context, it is nice to like, just push it to the extreme. As you know, these people in real life were pushed to the extreme, pushed towards constant addiction and like not being able to cope with their own mental health issues, right? And like, why not push it to the other extreme in your fiction, even if it's not the correct response? That's why fiction exists. It is a vacuum in our brain. It fills that vacuum in our brain that just wants to push towards like these intrusive thoughts. Like my immediate gut reactionary instinct, as you will recall that I opened this video with, was that people like Francis Farmer had every right in the world to burn down everyone who had lied, cheated, and wronged them in life and push them even further down into the muck. You know what I mean? Back to kind of what I was talking about though. Well, what happened to the student body, you know, the student body specifically that pushed her down further and further? Well, that was kind of justified. You know, some good people do get dragged into it, like our girl Yuki Minikami. That's not justified. She deserved better. You know, she gets caught up into it, and you know, it just fucks with her brain so much that she starts reminiscing over Sui no Sora of all things. Can you fucking imagine? Actually, I can't imagine. As one does, honestly. Takuji. But based. Takuji but based. Takuji but good. Speaking of Takuji, while Yuki is talking to him, usually throughout this visual novel, you'll notice something going all woo-woo-woo with the text boxes. Point 8 on the board, NVL text, short for novel text. This, for those of you uninitiated, there are two different types of text in visual novels, NVL novel and ADV, which is an acronym for something I cannot be fucked to remember right now. But basically, all you need to know is that novel like this, ADV like this. That's really the only difference. Most VNs nowadays utilize ADV, and Suba is no exception, which makes me sad. Novel feels way better. However, it is occasionally used in Suba when funny things start happening. Notably when Takuji's going all Matt Hardy in the classroom.
I can't believe we have 2 presidential candidates that deserve to be deleted!
Yuki witnesses a conversation between him, the Wakatsuki sisters, and Ayana. This is the first notable instance of NVL, and I think it's because Yuki is getting overwhelmed. Every time Takuji starts messing with her brainwaves, the text box switches and her consciousness becomes erratic. When that happens, she's more prone to seeing things like Ghost. Yeah, needless to say, these text boxes are totally dependent on the protagonist's mental state, or when the computer is being used, but to be fair, you have to be pretty mentally ill to use social media anyways. Knowing the difference, though, between the two text boxes is important, because it'll help us distinguish what's in a character's mind and what's actually real. The subject does not belong to the world, but is a limit of the world. Following that quote, Yuki's mind is not limited to the things going on, but can slip out of that into the realm of the fanciful. As we all tend to do, really. Reality is crazy, bro. But, and flawless transition coming up. Do you remember when I was talking about the Wakatsuki sisters and how maybe real or not real they are? Well, here's the answer that I teased earlier. All in the form of Iwata Miyu. I originally was gonna slap down a picture, a poorly printed out picture of her, but our printers broke, so just imagine I just did that. It's really funny, guys. She knows the answer to our question. The Wakatsuki sisters are only partly a delusion by Yuki and Takuji. They do certainly exist because Miyu and Ayana, but mostly Miyu here, perceives them. See, they have no physical forms, but they certainly do exist, if that makes any sense. It's just a matter of if you can perceive them, and people like Miyu can. But basically, Kagami is a rabbit doll, Tsukasa is Hasaki, and they do exist, and we'll talk about Hasaki. We will talk about Hasaki. Eventually. Probably. Maybe. If I ever finish this fucking series. I'm gonna cut back to the edit so I actually form a coherent thought. Bye. Anyways, going along with their basis of origin, most people likewise don't acknowledge their existence. They just see Hasaki. Except for Miyu, who says to Yuki, "Oh, you have the cute ones with you today." She makes note that it's two people when most people don't make that particular distinction, and later she'll talk about how they're also members of her club. Iwata Miyu can see the Wakatsuki sisters, and thinks they're real. Funnily enough, she was also in DTRH1 along with Ayana and co. Following all this logic, it'd be wrong to just chalk them up to a fabrication entirely. They exist, it's just a matter of if you can perceive them. Most just can't, but people like Miyu, Ayana, and of course Yuki and Takuji can. Or maybe this is just saying something about how you can only see certain sides of people. After all, it's once Yuki lowers her guard and opens her heart, dude, that she can perceive the twins as anything else. This could also be the inverse, however, with people like Miyu. Normally, most people can only see Hasaki because she has a physical form, but if you look at it in just the right way, the sisters are certainly there. Even Hasaki herself acknowledges this, and is content with it. Yuki likes the sisters, ergo Hasaki, so Hasaki is okay with that. But again, we'll talk about Hasaki later. We will. For now, our last point. Yuki thrives from analysis. It's a shame she's not very good at it. Chopping off a little sliver of myself, like inward, but my soul data. Chopping off a little bit of that. And just, because...
Holy neon green bins, Brother Nero! Aren't you a little old to be treating or deleting rapscallion? Well, of course, each weed with 3 E's, you speak in such an accelerated manner. It's absolutely glorious.
Hold up now. Let's get it going. Let's keep it going. All night until next year, Halloween.
Yeah.
We get my feet hot, boy. Get with it, boy. Get with it.
Like a pretentious YouTuber whose scripts go over an hour long, she analyzes everything. From the precious Takam in Zakuro's desk to how the phone phonily landed in her dresser. She makes all sorts of declarations and is the real arbiter of her destiny. And you share that journey of discovery with her. It's beautiful. However, you can make the argument that she is just a cog in the machine more than anyone else. DTRH2 is the route that by far presents the reader, ergo Yuki, with the most choices. I mean, look at this flowchart. However, those choices, no matter how many times you reset to pick a different one, have no actual bearing on the plot. Yuki is being forced along her path, and how shallow that is in actuality is presented to the reader via these pointless decisions. Whenever she makes a choice in this route, all of the background characters disappear, a la the ending of DTRH1, as if she's in her innermost world and contemplating. But no amount of plotting gets her to a different conclusion. No matter how much things seemingly branch out, it's all set on a path towards one non-stoppable end. It's much like this video. It branches out, does some funny things every now and again, but there's an overall point that can't be changed. Yuki thrives from analysis, but that analysis brings her to the same place. Her own foregone conclusion. It's the ultimate example of how she's limited to her worldview. She literally can't come to a different conclusion because she doesn't see everything. Again, the subject is a limit of the world, but not a part of it. To get the whole picture, you have to assemble all the pieces. Wowee, I wonder what the chapter select screen represents. But you, the reader, do have the whole picture. If you don't get it now, you simply just have to examine the other pieces as they're presented to you. How can you say you know if you've ever died before? Ayana says this to Yuki at some point during the route. I don't think it's really important when, but The point is, it's kind of stuck with me ever since. I mean, in context, she's probably just referring to the ending of DTRH1, you know, Yuki done being a ghost and all that, but I'm feeling stupidly introspective tonight. So, you know, let's talk about it in a tangent that will add nothing to the video except some weird emotional catharsis for me, and, you know, probably nothing for you. I mean, unless you like hearing my fucking ramblings. It'll be fun. Probably. Or just skip ahead. I won't take offense, honestly. You know, the fun part was probably a lie anyways. Truthfully, I won't know until the words escape my mouth, and I'm not even sure if this will end up in the final product as I'm even writing this. Or saying it. I've written it and I'm saying it right now. You get it. How can you know if you've died before? Well, how do we codify death? Of course, we have the overt definition of when life stops, but I think there's more to it than that. Life, consciousness, states of being, your day-to-day, all of these things have a set beginning and ending. They all just happen to come back again. You know, they renew themselves over and over again. Ergo, do we experience, on a microcosmic scale, mind you, but do we experience death? Probably. I mean, fuck, we change from day to day. I'm not just talking about our outfits or this shit. We literally change in small ways as people. Month to month, year to year. Hell, even from my last video, just talking personally, I've changed as a person. Would that be a death? I can capture the headspace I had then, but it's definitely not the same to the one I have now. It's like gender dysphoria, except without the crippling disconnect, and most of you schmucks can actually relate to what the fuck I'm saying. And the other part of you aren't running for the fucking hills because I'm talking about it, but I know it's all in my head, but when I think about how I used to be, I'm talking a little further back, I think it's a different person, different people, even. You know, during the summer before I went to college, this would have been 2019, I think. I spent that entire summer playing Final Fantasy X in a musty basement, and the first day I played it, I snacked on these really shitty cinnamon sugar-coated almonds. I can't think about Final Fantasy X, 1, without thinking of that musty basement, 2, without thinking of the taste of cinnamon sugar almonds, and 3, thinking about my mental state at that time. Just a person who did whatever you told them. If you told me to sniff bath salts back then, I probably would have just done it in a fucking heartbeat. But despite how I felt back then, you know, down to the point of associating it with certain tastes, smells, and sensations, I certainly do have a different mindset entirely than I did even just a few years ago. Does that count as a death? I don't know, you probably think I'm sounding like an overly philosophical ass. Even when I was writing out the basics for this, I kinda thought I was leaning into it, but I also think this is a fun conversation to have. So yeah, do interact in the comments. The fuck is death? To actually kind of tie it back to Down the Rabbit Hole 2, since, you know, this is a video about that fucking chapter, Yuki herself, best girl, right there is my shitty drawing of her. She changes from Down the Rabbit Hole 1 to 2 in a way that is not entirely disconnected from one another, but in a way that is definitely tangible. There's just so many little differences that they're just not the same, you know what I mean? That's what the flow of time does. Even though these two chapters are supposed to be taking place at the same time, they're really not. That's why I think Down the Rabbit Hole 1 is called Still Dreaming. That's the choice you have to select to get into it, because you can view it as a dream that Yuki has some subconscious knowledge of heading into Down the Rabbit Hole 2, so she maintains some of that growth, which both feels natural to the reader and feels natural just in general for Yuki's character, because of course she'd have weird fucking dreams like that. But yeah, don't fear the change of time. These changes can be like a storm, but don't run away from them. Just dive into them and you'll come out stronger. Metaphorically, of course, don't like actually jump into a storm, but on the topic of that little storm, I find myself diving into it regularly. Like, a little too often, if you know what I mean. You know, and sometimes it takes me a while to come back from that just mental kerfuffle. That real situation. That's why these videos take so long to make sometimes. It's not that it's hard to me. I just get really fucking depressed sometimes and I gotta deal with myself until I can function again. And usually this results, at least I like to think, usually this results in me coming out a stronger person, a better person, but it's just what you gotta do sometimes. Don't shirk away your issues, don't repress shit, just tackle it. I know I'm sounding preachy, but what? What you gonna do? When comparing the two headspaces I had before all this shit and now after it, and I'm just talking about since the last video uploaded, I think I can safely say that that old me is dead. I can't tell you the date of death and I can't give you an autopsy report. I just know that as I am now, I have nothing in common with the person I once was, especially the person from before this channel existed. All of that just kind of seems like a bad dream now, honestly. Really. As I was describing to you when I was taking that summer playing Final Fantasy X, none of that really felt real. Just moseying from one day to the next, not really doing anything, is no way to actually live life. And granted, taking the path I have now has kind of resulted in living a really meager, a really frugal life. But it's definitely better than it was. I think, at least. I'm sure there are some people who'd be dying to be in the position I used to be in, and I can't blame them for that, but really was just hellish all around. What you gonna do? I mean, we regrow our skin cells completely once every 7 years, so even that's a form of reincarnation. You know, our body is entirely new, like once every 7 or so years. We are literally not the same people we used to be. And, you know, I think, partially, that's the reason a lot of people in my position, the Tranoid position, think that their old selves, or have this mentality of, oh, the old me is dead, or oh, the old me was an act. Because once you actually start being yourself, it kind of does feel like that. And it's hard to, like, explain this to other people in a way that they can understand, because it's literally something you have to experience to even attempt to get across to someone. That's why it's such a fucking tight-knit community. Even though, like, I hate the community. I say the community, but I'm really taking a very generalized glance at it. I just like hanging out with, like, the few people I call my friends. We're good people. Read Subahibi. Yeah, if we change all the time, just in mental states, and this is something everyone can relate to, you don't have to be a fucking Tranoid. I don't think, at least. But, yeah. If you don't like the person you are now, don't worry, you can become someone else later. Thank you, Hideaki Anno, very cool. I know this is heady, and like I said at the start, not ostensibly fun. But I really do think there's some merit in it. I don't know, do you think we can reincarnate and change as different people? I think we can. Which, honestly, I'm thankful for. We can all grow as people, grow booba. Everyone can do this. So, viewer, do you think we can experience death, or am I just being an over-philosophical, self-centered ass? Truly, either answer is fine. I just want to know. Bye for now. Bro, I am not a type moon channel. I will literally self-immolate in front of you and irrevocably change the course of your life. I make videos about whatever the fuck I want. Fuck you. Ugh. It's kind of a sad moment. I've waited literally weeks to do this again. Fucking boop boop, bad brain. I've had this on my board. I've had this in my room for fucking weeks now. It's kind of a centerpiece. I don't know what I'm going to do once it's gone, because I'm also drawing the other thing, and then after that, it'll just be done. It'll just be done. That'll be it. It'll be gone. Okay, there's our new board. We're gonna make some funny lines, connections. It's gonna be fun. And we can start connecting now. I'll forgo the pins and red yarn way beyond this channel's budget and just use chalk. Just use this chalk right here and we'll make little funny lines. As you can see, we have a finely constructed board with all of our main topics on them, and my idea is that we'll just go through and interconnect them, and this totally won't be a confusing mess. Probably, maybe. That's a good sign. Ichi. From early on, we see that Takuji and Yuki are connected by this line and also by the liminal white space they share early on where they confront each other. Caught at that time. Yuki figures out the exact specifics of the curse system. Yuki gets most of the details right, but falls short in just a few areas. Like any standard amateur bog standard AniTuber. See, she thinks everything is Takuji's doing, as I said, like literally in the opener of this video, and that's simply like not the case. You know this, I know this, I have certified it with facts and logic. Zakuro is doing a little goof. She's being a little mischievous girl down in DTRH1. The concept of mental health in the story is personified by the muck that is like entangling the main character. In the story, they literally just have to open the door, but can't because they're the ones holding themselves back. Their muck that they keep in close to them, literally surrounding them at all times, always pulls her back, but right before she can. But regardless of that one neat thing, throughout the entire VN they are seemingly in each other's heads, rent-free as it were, which makes sense if we consider the multiple scenes with the NLV text where Takuji constantly blips. Takuji might full stop not properly exist if you take that into account. Could it be a delusion or another personality in Yuki's head? Well, not full stop, but it should be noted that the only time they converse without it going all 4x3 is in the intro and ending. Every other time, it's during the times where Yuki is in her own head. So, while I think it's silly to write him off entirely as a character, we do have to take into account that some of the stuff we see of him is Yuki being a little muy so. She might seem stable, but she's not. Yuki is the most Jenga tower character in the VN, built up all nice but can collapse at just the wrong moment. Also, fun to note, in the last convo the two have, the naming box switches from calling Takuji Mamiya and Takuji back and forth like the scripting's confused. When he's speaking saviorly, it's Mamiya, and when he's not, when Yuki sees through his BS, he is Takuji. It's like her opinion is changing in real time depending on what he says. It's a pretty neat detail. With regards to Yuki, however, there is one other thing to keep in mind about her. It's clear that Zakuro is helping him, because most of what he does has a rational explanation, but because we're in the perspective of Yuki, we can't see everything, and we can't come up with any conceivable way that the phone could have ended up in her desk, or just, you know, any sorts of those things. There are things that cannot be explained that I have talked about ad nauseum and will continue to talk about ad nauseum. Basically, Takuji had some kind of divine intervention, and what that was his connection to Zakuro. So I'm gonna connect Takuji to the truth. I mean, Takuji was written in her desk, and there's that weird ectoplasm in it. You know, soul data. Ooey gooey soul data, if you will. Regardless, through Takuji, Zakuro was able to fulfill her little prank, her little goof, her little gaff, her little whoopsie. I didn't really mean it. And, you know, it's all great. It's all amazing. Deserved TBH. That little prank still results, even though she gave it up at the end of DTRH1 of her following the canonical route, still leads to the deaths of countless individuals, so, does Takuji have the kill count, or does Zakuro? Or does Kimika? Or do they split it like 3 ways? Yuki doesn't outwardly portray any symptoms of shock after hearing about Zakuro and the events following her death. She just dives into trying to figure things out while ignoring that she does feel those things. This is what allows Takuji to win, I think. Yuki thrives from analysis, but only insofar as she successfully uses it as a coping tool to not feel her feelings. Wow. Her entire world starts falling apart because she's already repressing so much. The events following Takashima's death are simply pulling a block that shouldn't have been pulled, and the tower starts collapsing. Bad for her, but good for the reader, because this cope of hers leads her to figuring out the exact
Takuro,
specifics of Zakuji's cursey whirly antics. All of this does have an effect on the school, and that is true. The message board, which I think represents the school's collective unconscious, is full of people who believe in Takuji's messaging because he appealed to their fears. Truly as captivating as a dictator in his cadence. Everyone knows the media is bad. Everyone knows that the world is desensitizing them. At least on some level they do. Most people also want if it's my own invention and the end of DTRH2 are actually different in some way, like if they're on some different world lines. You really have to wonder about stuff like that because there's just like little microcosmic differences, like there's that and then there's the speech Takuji gives, which even if we take into account that these two are the same person, right? You still have to see, like, they should be sharing at least some part the same delusion, but Takuji gives essentially 2 different speeches because Ayana and the Wakatsuki sisters aren't even there when he's, like, giving his little fucking speech.
Making an appeal to emotion through a seemingly obvious truth, but one that isn't so obvious.
Like I said, part of this is probably just Yuki not being able to cope, you know, her personality making up, like, what could have happened, but, like, she never brings it up again with Kagami or what. She never brings it up again with Kagami or Tsukasa. God, those names are hard. And, you know, it's 101, down to the call to action at the end. Simple in its elegance, and definitely effective. Makes you wonder if things are different. Though, of course, this could just be a matter of split perspectives, but still, that doesn't explain why. On this trip, I got placed with John. Oh my god, my brain alt F4'd on Kimika. But that still doesn't explain why Kimika is there at the ending when, in fucking normal land, she's not. When Kita-Hai becomes erratic, it spurs Yuki into action. Her investigative skills in this chapter clearly show that she can unravel threads quickly and give rationale back to an irrational populace. She does as much in calming Kagami's worries after all, which, in hindsight, kinda like calming her own worries, isn't it? Wow, Yuki really doesn't do much, does she? But if she did, she'd be pretty dangerous to Takuji and the curse. Now, I think it's just Yuki being delusional and paranoid, but another explanation for her headaches and constantly seeing Takuji is that he knows the threat Yuki is and is trying to... So does this follow the Kimika end? I don't think so, because Takuji's not like jumping out after her, though, however, it does go to delusion afterwards, so maybe you could make this psychic link and giving Yuki constant headaches, making her consciousness scattered, etc. She's stalled just enough for it all to be too late. Exactly what is needed for the cult to fulfill its purpose, and all that's needed for Yuki to be 2 sticks short of a fiddle. I harped on her a good bit, but Yuki really is doing her best. She's alone, isolated, she's literally one person, and she came close to unraveling everything. If I didn't make it really obvious by now, the moral of this video, the moral of the story in general, is... As it is, though, her story really is just a bitter tragedy with her mind breaking at the end. Her constant headaches and raging emotions, though she worked through them, were her undoing. Those headaches, like your consciousness is split apart with an axe. Doesn't sound fun, does it? I fucking know it isn't easy. I mean, look at people like Frances Farmer. She was ostracized her entire life for just a little bit of mental illness that she had, and it's not like that's changed in recent years. It's a gross stigma, and I hope it dies, but in the meantime, you still have to not give up. Take care of yourself. I don't care if I'm repeating myself. It's important, and I only just learned this lesson, like, legitimately had it ingrained into my big dumb woman skull recently. Oddly enough, by reflecting on this chapter, Yuki literally thought she was fine until she looked up at the sky and saw this big, bleeding eyeball hemorrhaging blood. Which, that was her end sky. That was reflective of her mental state, which is what I honestly think the end skies are. They're all just reflective of like how the character feels, which is why at the end of DTRH1, Yuki and Zakuro's end sky is like so filled with joy. As it says in the other endings, this world that were empty vessels were just filled to the brim with happiness, which in the end sky was reflective of that. I'm dipping into it, but even in fucking It's My Own Invention, the Kimika end, Kimika's owned end sky changes from being the fucking just duct taped together to the fireworks her and Zakuji saw. It's literally all it is. It's reflective of your own mental state. Which is why we all have our own individual end skies. It's why when you take the quizzes, they're fucking... They ask you, what do you think your end sky would look like? At least that's what I think. I'm probably, like, just making some shit up, and these quizzes were made in, like, a weekend by some 14-year-old who had just read Subahibi, or more likely just read the synopsis or something. I don't know. I'm rambling again. But, yeah. I'm sorry if this video seems like it just kind of ended, but to be honest, I've covered everything I could ever hope to cover. This script originally had another 2 pages where I was supposed to keep going on, and just my makeup was supposed to get like really disheveled, but honestly, those 2 pages were just me repeating myself over and over again. I've gotten all the analysis out of this chapter that I wanted to get out. I've gotten what I think the main message of the chapter is across, and you know, I think it's good. I think that's enough. I'm sorry if you don't think so, but hey, sometimes you gotta be anticlimactic. And I don't want to sit here and waste your time to push myself and this video by extension to a false end that feels pseudo-fake, so this is just where it's going to end. That's it. That's the video. We have officially hit Endslate territory, and this one's a little longer because I have a serious update for you all about the future of this channel. I can't keep doing this. Not making videos, that's never going to stop. I mean, I can't keep doing this as like my only thing. I donate plasma to live. After I record this the next day, I'm probably going to go donate some more. Like, I can't keep doing that. It's not good for my health or my mental state, as shown by, like, these videos taking fucking forever to come out. Literally too mentally ill to make YouTube content, and that didn't stop until I fucking got on a new life path. This video only exists because I fucking corrected myself. Wah. God. So basically, I'm getting a part-time job. And in the spring, I'm going back to school, so the frequency of videos is already slow. It'll probably be at the same rate you're expecting, like fucking 1 video a month, honestly. It was split between mental illness and just coping before, and now it's just going to be split between me actually getting my fucking life together, going back to school for programming, and it's going to be great. I actually like doing it, and it makes money. My fucking promise to myself is if this ever makes enough money, YouTube I mean, if this ever makes enough money as my fucking part-time job that I'll be working, then I'll fucking go back to it. But I honestly don't see that ever happening. What I do is too fucking niche, and, you know, I'm content. I tried this for 2 fucking years, really wanted it a lot, but you know, you can't always live your dreams. But you can keep trying, and I am going to keep trying. This channel's not dead. It's just I'm not trying to, like, kill myself trying to get shit out. I'm just going to slow down, take life as it comes, and I'm making videos whenever it feels right. Probably still gonna finish K&K and Subahibi. Probably will do something with Fate Extra. But you know, that's the future. That's the future. And, you know, it'll probably take us a while to get there, but we'll get there. I'm not severely mentally ill anymore, so sorry if you can't connect to my videos via that. Yeah. I'm keeping my Patreon open, just kind of as like a tip jar, because I'm not going to stop making videos. I'm going to try for like at least one a month. Don't fucking hold me to that. I don't know how viable that even is, but I'm going to try for that. So it'll more or less be there as a tip jar. I'm not doing this full time anymore, I guess would be the words for it. So if you're a patron and you want to like unpatron, I won't take offense. Like, I've been really slow at uploading shit anyways, and you all deserve better than that. Honest to God. I would still really appreciate it though. Honest to God, I would really fucking appreciate it if you all did patron. But you don't have to. I get basic bitch ad revenue. There's still gonna be fucking the Patreon tiers. I'm still going to make you all fucking videos if you want me to make them. I'll still do a podcast, like, sometimes. Which is, if you fucking patron once, you get access to all of that shit. Just not the new shit if you unpatron. But it makes sense, right? You all get it. $10 one time, fucking video, $5, everything else I've ever done. Patreon side, at least. Which, shit, that's it. That's really it. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, because you're not going to want to miss the rest of this series. If you thought this video got fucking weird, I no longer have any, like, need or proclivity to keep these things PG or, you know, hold myself back in the hopes that, like, it reaches a wider audience. This shit's gonna get fucking weird, bro. So, yeah, check it out if you're interested. Hit the bell, get notified, and all that shit. I'm not gonna stop making videos. It's something I love dearly. It's not viable. That's it. It's just not viable, and I've recognized that, and I'm moving on with my life. I'm still going to have this as a part of my life, but it's not going to be the main part of my life. More like a hobby, or something I do on the weekends. I cannot recommend enough that you all just, like, make something. Go make a video, go make some fucking art, go just do something creative. It's really fucking good for your mental space. Especially if you're not, like, trying to make a living out of it. Just do it for yourself. This video probably seems like a bit more unstructured than my usual affairs, but that's because this exists purely for me and, like, the people who want to see it. But this is, like, all just passion. I like Subahibi, I make video about Subabooba. That's it. Is there anything else I wrote into the script? Yep, that's it. I'm gonna go work my wage slave job. I'm going to go work on my fucking voice because, speaking with the low cadence like this kinda kills me inside. Yeah. Trans shit, fuck bitches, get laid, get paid, drink Gatorade. God, that's an old fucking meme. Sayonara gozaimashita. See you later, sleepyheads. Bye-bye. Iroshiku bye-bye. Haro Musako. I read that shit in 3 days and had a really bad breakdown for a month. That was a fun time. Surround yourself with people who love you. Stand up for yourself. Be a real one. Sleepy's dead. Sleepy's dead. Nanaya Sleepy killed him. Only the real ones will get that reference. Nanaya Sleepy's out and about. He's scary. I'm afraid of him. But, you know, he's out. He's free. And yeah, that was the shittiest ending to a video I've ever done. Just, like, vocal-wise, just like everything-wise, bye. Bye. A toast to you. Don't season your coffee.
Riding for Rookies is a beginner level B riding class, and we are coming to a city near you.
Like if this is pointless.